Chargers fan. Is the Chargers and tied it at 17? There's a definition of pure ecstasy. That's it.
Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Go ahead and like it right now because you know you're going to love it. Don't even wait. Hey guys, we play today. And we have some things to talk about. But first, let's go over some channel news so you guys kind of know what's going on for today. I'm going to probably be live a total of 6 hours today. 6 minimum. So yeah, don't ever say I don't create content, okay? This link to this show is going to redirect you straight to the live watch along. And that live watch along is going to start at 7 p.m. UK time. And that's when pre-match vibes is going to start. We're going to react to the lineup. And I'm sure we're going to have a reaction, okay? Player ratings immediately following the game. So make sure you guys set your notifications for that. And She Knows Arsenal is about 500 subs away from 20K. So please make sure you guys subscribe. And yeah, let's just get stuck in. Let's get stuck in. Let's see who is here. World Boss says, hey, Jess, come on, you Gunners. Hey, I hope you're doing well. Chosen One says, Lionel Jesse, European Nights. Says, Saudi, please answer the phone. I have a player to sell. Big GZ says, Jess. Hello to you as well. Akal says, Jess, party leaving. Ornstein again, newspaper lies this time. Nuzo says, sup from South Africa. And Chris Frazier says, consider like button liked. Thank you so much. And this show is going to last for about an hour. So you're going to have an hour gap between the watch along and this show. So if you guys want to, there's going to be we have a full preview on the channel that I did with Pippa, where we actually went over like who do we think should play, Sevilla and all that kind of stuff. It's about 30 minutes long, and I have pinned that link in the chat. So if you want more content, it's there for you. So yeah, this show is going to be primarily focused around Arsenal's midfield and one of our most important players in Thomas Partey. Is he going to be available for tonight's match? And is he going to be on his way out in January? Thomas Partey has been linked to a move away since the summer. And as much as people want to ignore that, it's true. We had bids come in from Saudi Arabia. Juventus, sorry. People hate when I say Juventus were extremely interested in him, but they weren't able to come up with the 40 million pounds that Arsenal were asking for. And Arsenal were heavily linked with Lavia. And I think that move was heavily reliant upon Thomas Partey leaving because, of course, you'd need another DM to come in if you didn't feel like you could rely upon Jorginho. So I'm sorry, you guys, I'm out of breath. And the reason why I'm out of breath is because I was chasing my dog around, and nothing will humble you more than chasing a small child or a small dog around. And in my trying to play with Bella, I almost died. So yeah, consider me humbled. And that is why I'm kind of out of breath. Now, Thomas Partey has been linked with a move away, and there have been reports coming out lately around Thomas Partey potentially being interested in leaving Arsenal in January because of his role being minimized. Over the last 3 seasons, he has been our starting DM. He has been a huge part of the team. Now that Declan Rice has come in, his role has been limited, and it hasn't helped that he's been injured. There are rumors flying around that Thomas Partey could potentially be out of tonight's game against Sevilla, which people were yelling at me a lot in the previews ahead of the Chelsea game because I was saying, well, maybe you start Jorginho. And yeah, Jorginho didn't end up being the best choice, and Thomas Partey stayed on the bench the entire time. But I did feel like the only reason why Arteta would not have used Thomas Partey is because maybe he's not fit. And people were on my neck about it. And I'm just like, you guys, the guy is always injured. I do think people heavily conflate his ability with who he's been at Arsenal. And who he's been at Arsenal is an exceptional talent that has been unable to put together a long run of availability. And he tends to be unavailable when it really matters. Thomas Partey has already missed 50 games in 4 seasons for Arsenal, and he's been out of 6 matches already this season. We've played, what, 11, 12 games so far? So, he's already missed half of our games. And I think when people say, like, when people hear any sort of criticism around Thomas Partey, what they feel like they're hearing is, "I don't rate Thomas Partey." I rate him very much. I think he's an exceptional player, but he's not available enough. He's not available enough. And so if he's not available today for the Sevilla game, now that's not confirmed. It's unconfirmed rumors that he's not going to be available today. And quite frankly, Jorginho did the presser. And how often is it that the player that does the presser does not start? If Jorginho's starting, Thomas Partey is not. It'll be Declan Rice, Jorginho, and Ødegaard. So if it ends up being the case that Thomas Partey does not play against Sevilla, we need to start looking for an alternative solution in January. Because this player, we are holding our breath, hoping that this player is fit. He's going to be gone for the month of January, by the way. So if he can't maintain his fitness for November and December, then what's the point? What's the point? So I think we're in a situation where we need to see a run of availability from Thomas Partey from now until January. 2 months injury free so that we can get back on track and we can get some semblance of a balanced midfield. Now, I still have questions whether or not Thomas Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard is more than a short-term fix for a big problem. But on paper, that midfield is our best. So we're holding our breath every week, hoping to see that group of players play together. And we've only really seen it against Manchester City in the Community Shield. So Thomas Partey needs to be fit now. He just has to be. Otherwise, what's the point? We're waiting around for a player that we desperately need to help us get over this weird patch of, like, what is the midfield about to be? And if he can't be fit, then we need to find an alternative solution. And quite frankly, I am tired of hearing people pretend as though this player is not a massive problem for Arsenal. If he's not somebody that you can rely upon, then he's not that useful to you. And so saying that maybe we should move on from Thomas Partey is not really something at this stage that I feel like people should be like, you know, it's like the reaction to it is as if you said that Saka should go or Martinelli should go or, Saliba should go. There are levels to this game. I had somebody make a comment the other day on one of my videos saying, you have all this context and all this context around Ødegaard and his situation, but you're ready to kick Thomas Partey to the curb at the first sign of trouble. The difference between Ødegaard and Thomas Partey is Ødegaard has been consistent for us, available and consistent, and has been a part of a twosome that has really carried us for the last 2 seasons. Saka and Ødegaard have been our most consistent performers over the last 2 seasons. So when we start talking about a player that's missed 50 games, that's on £250,000 per week and is 30 years old, we're not talking about the same 2 things. Ødegaard going missing in big games, if that's the narrative that you choose to believe in, is not the same as a 30-year-old who's missed 50 games for Arsenal. And oh, by the way, a lot of those are big matches. So if you want to get rid of Ødegaard because he doesn't show up in big games, then you damn sure want to get rid of somebody who's missed so many big matches. So many. And I'm going to pull them up for you right now. Because again, at least Ødegaard was on the pitch. At least Ødegaard was on the pitch. Okay? So, and I've shown this before and people didn't like it, but I'm going to show it again because you guys need to see it. These are all the big matches that Thomas Partey has missed. All of them. That's a fucking lot, y'all. That is a lot. 2021, 2022, Spurs away, Newcastle away, Manchester United at home, and Manchester City away. 2022, 2023, Manchester United away, Manchester City at home, Manchester City away, Liverpool away. 2023, 2024, Manchester United at home, Spurs at home, Manchester City at home. That's a lot. That's a lot. So if you want to get rid of Ødegaard and you feel like we need to upgrade upon him because he cannot play in big matches or he doesn't show up or he goes, you better want to get rid of this guy. You see what I'm saying? So of course I'm going to apply context to the guy that's been there. At least he was on the pitch. And quite frankly, maybe if Thomas Partey had been on the pitch, Ødegaard would have played better. It's not a surefire solution, but I'm sorry. Does Kevin De Bruyne win every single match and play well against the big teams without Rodri or Fernandinho behind him? No. No, he doesn't. Going into every single big match with El Neni in the midfield. Are we meant to win those games? So I'm not absolving Ødegaard from like his responsibilities. But if you think that not having Thomas Partey, your best midfielder, available to you in big matches is not going to affect the rest of the midfield, you're smoking high grade and you need to pass the blunt. Okay? I'm sorry, but he needs to be available tonight. And for the next 2 months, every single match he needs to be available. Next 2 months, because he's going to be gone in January. And we really need him available from February on, because we know that that's when crunch time happens. He has got to maintain some level of fitness. He is too good of a player and too important to our team to be missing so often. And we have a midfield issue, y'all. We have a midfield issue right now. I've spoken about it with several people. I've spoken about it with you guys. And right now, our midfield imbalance is very, very obvious. And so if Thomas Partey can't be fit, we need to be in the January transfer window solving that issue. And that's just as simple as it becomes. It doesn't have anything to do with his quality. We know he's a quality player, but how many quality players have we had over the years that have not been available to us? He's no different. He's not special. He's not, you know? So these rumors of him not being available today are rattling me because it's a must-win game tonight. And we really need to be able to field Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard tonight. It's a must-win game. It's a must-win game. So I'm hoping that these are just rumors and that Arteta's playing mind games by allowing Jorginho to do the press conference. But how many times, how likely is that? And would you put money on Thomas Partey being fit all of November and all of December? Like, Arsenal's physio has to travel with him on international break, y'all. Let's be serious, you know? So I think that we have a little bit of a problem here. But I think it can be solved internally in some way. But I also think that Arsenal really need to get real very quickly about their midfield situation, because if Thomas Partey can't maintain his fitness and they've already jumped ship on the idea of Kai Havertz playing in midfield, we have a problem. We have a big problem. Let's see what you guys are saying. Mamang is saying, if J20 starts, we lose tonight. Richie Rabbit says, depends on what odds you're giving me, Jess. Boy says Partey at right back. Ansa says, is he not available because of an injury? We'll have to see. Yo-Yo says, Player FC is besides the point. The club haven't made a mistake in having Partey. They made a mistake making him a pillar like Zinchenko, Tommy, Gabriel Jesus. You build a squad to withstand such players going AWOL. That's a really good point. It's just like when we spoke about Atletico not playing Thomas Partey that often. He was not like the main guy in their midfield. Saul and Koke were doing all the hard work. They played every single week. Thomas Partey came in to shore them up and made them more difficult to beat against the bigger teams. So we had these really big performances, eye-catching performances against the bigger teams. But Arsenal have made him the main guy, and he's just not the main guy. He's not somebody that you're going to be able to rely upon 99% of the time. And so if he can be some sort of, squad player, then fair enough. But he's already missed a couple of really big games. The games that he was meant to play, he's already missed quite a few of them. You know, what am I meant to say? Hani says, how the hell did he get injured already without even playing yet? Ray Beam says, Jess, what about Odegaard's drop in form? We've already discussed that. Like, again, if like we discussed the drop in form. I think the drop in form is just normal. Like every single player goes through dips in form, but Arsenal fans seem to be kind of like the only fan base that doesn't understand or like won't accept it. It always has to be this deeper inquest into whether or not the player is awful or not, or do we need to get rid of this guy? He's probably going to come back into form, and the imbalance in midfield cannot be overlooked. Everything around him has changed, but people just expect him to just keep going without, like, if Xhaka and Partey were still there and he was having this weird season, it would be more of like a puzzling, it'd be more puzzling because it's like nothing has changed. Everything around him has changed. He has left center mid. The first 5 games when he played with Havertz, that guy was nowhere to be found in terms of creativity, getting on the ball, nothing. And then you have Rice, who's very different than Thomas Partey. So the idea that Ødegaard should just be able to just keep going without any changes whatsoever is not only unfair, but naive. I'm not saying that he doesn't have to try harder or at some point he doesn't have to come back into form. But I do think people are being disingenuous with Martin Ødegaard and saying all these outlandish things about how he's not that great of a player. We need to get rid of him. We need to move on from him without taking into context all the other things. The same type of backing that Partey has gotten for 4 seasons about how he needs a better player next to him instead of Granit Xhaka, how Arteta needs to learn how to manage his minutes because he can't stay fit better. Like, we pick and choose who we want to have context with. And Martin Ødegaard is somebody who I do think deserves a little bit more respect for being out of form for the first time since 2021. The last time I've seen him as bad as he was against Chelsea was against Brighton. Y'all remember the game we wore the light yellow kits and we could barely kick it to each other. It was raining. That's the last time I seen Martin Ødegaard as bad as he was against Chelsea. It's 2 years ago, So you can ask me about Ødegaard all day long, but at least he was on the pitch for the big games. Etta B says, Partey is a good player, but he has serious fitness issues. Hence, he's only available half of the time. He's on 10.4 million pound salary and he is 31 years old. So please send him to Saudi. It's weird because when even at the mention of that during the summer was a very contentious thing. And I felt like, what do you guys actually believe he's going to be fit this season? Or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have to keep Partey. You have to keep Partey. I think, we should have just taken whatever we could have gotten. If he continues on, if he's not fit for all of November and all of December, we really should have probably taken like the 20 million and used that money to reinvest in a player that could play in left center mid, or a player that could be another number 6 that could allow Declan to push up. Like I get that Arsenal wanted to get 40 million for him, but nobody's going to pay that for Thomas Partey at this stage, So I just think like, this is so typical and we really need Thomas Partey to be fit now more than ever. And so I need him on the team sheet tonight. I need these rumors to be fake. I really do, because this is a must-win game. It's so important that we beat Sevilla. So important. He would give us the edge. He would give us the edge. He would take us to that next level. Like everybody says, he's one of our best players, best midfielders. He would take us over the edge. But if he can't be fit for the game, then what are we even talking about anymore? Balogun says, people forget Martin is still young and not yet the finished article. He was the only midfield outlet we had against a compact Chelsea, hence easy to mark him out. He needs Partey next to him. And somebody, tweeted this, and I thought, people won't like this. People won't like this, but I just want to read it to you guys because I do think it's a really interesting point and goes back to my main, gripe with not having our best players available to us in any big match. It's really frustrating. And I can't read the name. Deloading 19. I hope that sounds like a disgusting name, but I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be. Maybe his name is Derek Loading, but I don't know. He says that they only look good, talking about Chelsea, because Jorginho and Zinchenko couldn't get Ødegaard the ball in dangerous positions. And this is why the cam role is a luxury, because if you can't get them the ball in the right positions, the game passes them by. This is why Ødegaard looks worse against the top sides, because Partey is always injured for them. Zinchenko and Jorginho, I feel like they're always against us anyway. So that's an interesting point, because obviously when you play against the better teams, your midfield needs to be a lot stronger. And we saw in the Community Shield how much more, that was the first time that we've actually been able to be, I think, toe to toe with them midfield wise for the entire match. And Ødegaard didn't just get lost. He was on the ball, he was getting sack of the ball. We had a lot more about us. We did spend quite a bit of that match off the ball, because obviously Manchester City imposed themselves with possession. But it was the first time in a long time where I felt like Ødegaard wasn't just isolated and we weren't able to do anything, because we actually had two really good midfielders behind him that could help win the ball back and punch it in between the lines into his feet. Now, the time before that where Ødegaard looked good against Manchester City was in 2021 when we played them at home. We still lost, but it was the first time that I think we played against Manchester City under Mikel Arteta and felt like we were in the game. Guess who was available for that game? Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka. So I think we have to take all that into consideration, that in the bigger matches, if we want to play with a number 10, whether it's Martin Ødegaard, Kai Havertz, Vieira, or ESR, I don't care who it is, whether it's any one of those, you need to have two midfielders that could allow you to have the platform to get those players the ball. And Jorginho's not going to be enough. Not in most matches, he's not going to be enough. Zinchenko coming into midfield is not going to be enough. You need to have two guys in there that are not afraid to receive the ball and pressure and get us up the pitch. And so if Thomas Partey cannot be that person for us in those big games, which I was open to the idea of him just being somebody that we rely upon in big games, but he's already missed 3 of them. He wasn't available for Manchester United, he was available for Chelsea. He wasn't available for Manchester United and Spurs. So that's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing. I think Ødegaard definitely needs to do more, but I can definitely see how he's finding it more difficult against the better teams to get involved in matches when you don't have the right midfield behind him to allow him to get the ball in between the lines and things like that. So it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It really is. And so I'm finding it really difficult to continue to have these conversations as if this guy, it's not about his quality. It's about the fact that he's never available when we need him to be. All we need you to be right now, all we need is for you to be available for the big matches. And you've already missed 2. So there's that. And I know people are we're so angry that Thomas Partey didn't play against Chelsea, but it could just be the case that he wasn't fit enough. So let's see. The Eddie says, just look at Madison's season or De Bruyne's season. You can play a 10 if your lineup is correct. And I did. I went back and, I was in a rabbit hole. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I didn't I spent my entire evening yesterday looking at the numbers between, I took Kevin De Bruyne out of the equation. And the reason why I took Kevin De Bruyne out of the equation is because he's just a much better footballer than everybody else. I don't feel eventually I want to be able to compare Ødegaard to Kevin De Bruyne, but I feel right now that that's quite silly. I want to compare Martin Ødegaard to Bruno Fernandes and Maddison, who are players that have played in the Premier League for a long time as creative midfielders and have exemplary numbers. They look really, really good in terms of what you get back from them in terms of goals and assists on a consistent basis. And I wanted to see if there was a major gap in between, Ødegaard and them. And what I found is that in games, just games in general, that there wasn't really much in terms of goals and assists and how, there wasn't much really between them in general. And I have the numbers for you guys if you guys want to know, because I'm not bullshitting. I promise you guys. If Ødegaard was way behind, I would tell you. In 172 appearances for Leicester and Tottenham, Maddison has 85 goals and assists, which is amazing, right? And you have to remember that Maddison has been in the league and has been playing for those two teams for 5 years, right? And Ødegaard has 96 appearances for Arsenal and has 42 goals and assists, which is really good. Both of them average 17 goals and assists per season. So Ødegaard, 16.8 goals and assists per season, Maddison, 17 goals and assists per season. So there's not really that big of a gap in terms of what the two create. And Maddison is also 2 or 3 years older than Ødegaard's been in the league longer. So, I'm finding it like, okay, well, everybody's saying that Maddison is like so much better as a creator. He's actually not. He's just been in the league longer. Um, and in terms of goals and assists against the bigger teams, Maddison has what, 22? 22 in the Premier League. Ødegaard has 9, so that's about half. Again, Maddison has been in the league for 2.5 more seasons than Ødegaard. So it's really not that big of a difference. You know, he's not totally unperforming. If it were the case that Martin Ødegaard was not stepping up in big matches, I would expect to see a much bigger difference between him and his peers. And there just is. In fact, Bruno Fernandes is actually lower than Ødegaard in terms of how many goals that he scores against the bigger teams. So it's just kind of the case that when you play against bigger teams, it's harder for your better players to get involved. And the only way that you can give them a good platform to succeed is to have better players around them so that they don't get shut out of the game. I was really expecting these numbers to be way different, but they're just not. So, yeah, Ødegaard is just not performing. He's not performing any worse than any of his peers. And the only player that's clear of everybody is Kevin De Bruyne. And we know why, because he is one of the best midfielders that we've ever seen in the Premier League. But in terms of Bruno Fernandes, Maddison versus Ødegaard, there just really isn't that big of a difference, you guys. Ødegaard's been in the league less time. He's younger than them, you know? So I think this whole idea that he just doesn't show up in big games is just a lie, quite frankly. And I think it's something that started and nobody checks anybody because it sounds cute. Yo-Yo says, that's an Arteta choice. Blaming any of these players for decisions by the manager is wrong, in my opinion. TBG says, Partey is a massive liability, should have gotten rid of the summer. Aha says, let's say we can only get one player in Jan, and if we could spend big, would we want a striker, Tony, a right wing in Neto, or a natural CM? We don't have one. Or a defender, we have 6-bar Timber. I think that's a good way to kind of segue into my next part of the conversation, which is, and there's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. In January, if Thomas Partey is not fit in for the next 2 months, we need a midfielder. That's what I'll say. I think we need to go out into the January window and buy a midfielder more than we need a striker and more than we need a defender or a winger. And here's why. Because if your midfield is not clicking, it does not matter who you put up there. They're not going to score goals. They're not going to score goals. I think a massive reason why our chance creation has went down is not because Gabriel Jesus and Nketiah are just bad finishers. It's because we're just not creating enough. And so from my perspective, the players that we had last season that scored, 40 goals between Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli didn't become shit overnight. They're not getting enough chances. Our midfield is not working. So from my perspective, in January, we need to be looking for a midfielder. We have to. Highbury Ultra 13X says, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, I got slated in the summer for saying we should have sold him. Kind of fed up, to be honest. Sell him in January. Get in Yusuf Fofana type player, an actual 8. Big up, Jess. Big up to you as well. I really appreciate that super chat. Yeah. What would you guys do in January? Ornstein has already kind of come out and said that Arsenal don't anticipate doing anything big, but we cannot go through the rest of the season with what we have in midfield if we've already abandoned Kai Havertz at 8. We don't have enough. We need to figure out something. And if Arsenal are unwilling to go into the market, then Arteta needs to figure out an internal situation for midfield in order to get a better balance between our 8s and Declan Rice. And we need to figure out who's going to be playing with Ødegaard and Rice. Who is it going to be? Who is it going to be? If we want to be more defensive, then Partey needs to be more fit. If it's going to be somebody more attacking, then you need to pick someone. And, I wouldn't mind seeing Trossard tried there. A player that probably not should be starting for Arsenal, but is a starting level player as more of an interior. If you're willing to try Kai Havertz there, why aren't you willing to try Trossard there? Maybe it's because he's not good enough at pressing, but right now we're arguing over like small things now. Arsenal really needs to figure out something in midfield. Boy says, you can't tell me that between Fabio Vieira, Jorginho, ESR, Havertz, El Neni, and Partey that we can't solve midfield. We also have Nweri and Lewis Skelly who can play CM. It's something that, in the beginning of the season, I felt like, we would eventually get the balance right and we'd figure out who it was. When we were trying Vieira there, I was like, okay, now Arteta's trying Vieira there. Vieira didn't even make the squad in the last game. So we still have some questions that are not quite getting answered. And we're a quarter through the season now, and we're going into really important matches, not feeling confident about the midfield that we have. So I agree with you that there has to be an internal solution. There has to be an internal solution if we don't go into the market. But if we do go into the market and we need to buy someone, if Partey can't stay fit, if Partey can stay fit, then fair enough. You can just play Partey in the big matches and then figure out left center mid. But if he's not fit enough, if he can't play from now until January, you got to go out and get someone. You have to. Pelp says, I agree 100% that Partey has to go. He's a very good player, but is on an injury list more than he plays. He has to be fit tonight. He has to be. Like, seeing Jorginho do the presser, like, I was like, oh, is Partey fit or no? I was 100% convinced that Partey was going to start today and that he was being rested against Chelsea to be fit for Sevilla. If he does not play today, you guys, Zich says, if we don't trust Kai Havertz, Vieira, and ESR, then we need to sell them to make room for a player who we want. Lucas says, we should only sign a top CM from now. For depth, use MLS or Patino or buy a Moscardo type. Says, I agree. Trossard also has defensive capabilities we need to see in there. And the thing is we only try him there once. And because, maybe he makes one mistake or something like that, then he's never played there again. I think the run that Kai Havertz had at left center mid before we just completely scrapped the idea is the same amount of time that anybody else should get there. Vieira only got 1 or 2 games, and now that's, he's not getting, we need to keep somebody there for 4 or 5 games to see if they can build a relationship with Rice and Ødegaard, because they haven't even gotten a chance to build a relationship either. There's no connection between Declan Rice and Ødegaard right now. None. So we need a kind of settled midfield, one where we're trying to be more attacking and one where we're trying to be more defensive. Declan Rice and Ødegaard plus a more attacking midfielder, Ødegaard plus Rice plus a more defensive-minded midfielder. We need Partey to be fit. Period. Bro Pro says, let's be real. Arteta will stick with Kai and Gamble. I want him to stick with him. Here's the thing, guys, is I need you to have conviction with your ideas. If you're going to go out there, you're going to spend 65 million on a guy that we did not need, that doesn't play striker or left center mid, but in your galaxy brain, you decided that he could. I need you to have so much conviction in the idea that you play him there every single game. I need you to coach him into that player. But kind of now him being a center forward option is very, very, very shady, because now it kind of feels like he's playing a bench role and coming on as a center forward. I need him to play left center mid for much longer than he did, or else I feel like you guys just gambled our season away on an idea that you aren't even 100% convinced by yourself. So I need Kai to continue to play there, or we need to play somebody else there. I don't know. That's a big red flag to me, is for Kai Havertz not to be playing there now. Maybe he plays there today, but to me, that's a lack of conviction, and an idea that I think a lot of people looked at it on the day and was like, why would you do that? And Arteta was very defensive about it, saying, we have to figure out where he plays. And, he can play the 8 and he played there before. Why isn't he playing there now? TBG says ESR ain't an 8. Neither is Trossard. I would be tempted to call back Patino from loan. That's an actual number 8. I mean, but the thing about the manager has to figure out a way. Like, I've seen players move from position to a different position that didn't necessarily, like, when you looked at it on face value, you were like, that doesn't, I'm not sure. And then they coached them into that role because they figured out ways to get the best out of them in that situation. I need to see that from Mikel Arteta right now, from now until January. We have a couple of players that could probably play in left center mid that aren't the perfect choice, but it's up to the manager to figure out a way to make them to, like, I don't know, make what they have that's good shine more and limit the other parts. And I'm just not seeing enough of that. If you had asked a Newcastle fan 4 years ago if Joe Linton would be playing midfield for them, they would probably have laughed in your face. But he's fitted in seamlessly. He's not like perfect, but the idea that Trossard just cannot play there because he's not an 8, his attributes are 8 qualities. They are. They are like an attacking midfielder. He is somebody that profiles more similarly like a creative midfielder. So why can't he play in the 10 role for Arsenal? Why can't he play in one of the 10 roles? Like, you need to back your coaching. You need to either coach Kai into it, coach Trossard into it, coach ESR into it, coach Vieira into it. These are all your guys. Coach one of them into a number 10/8. Coach them into it. Make it work. Make it work. Here to there says, if we end up in disarray out of UCL, we can't allow Arteta to have another dime, another transfer window. Leighton says it's either he's injured or he isn't in Spain because of his legal troubles that took place. If I speak. Chris Fraser says we have El Neni. Oh, yeah. Wait. Yeah. Somebody already kind of said, I think you already kind of, no, somebody else said this. We have El Neni, Jorginho, Partey, an asterisk, Ødegaard, Vieira, ESR, Trossard, Kai, Zinchenko, and Rice. It's insane to me that Mikel can't get our midfield working better than this. I mean, they have created this is not something that he was, gifted at this point or something that he came into. This is the midfield situation that he has created because he's had pretty much carte blanche to do whatever he wants in the transfer window and be backed. Like, I've never seen an Arsenal manager back before. So this is not something that, like, we can say, well, he's in a tough situation. No, this is a situation that he created. He decided not to go after a traditional number 8 that can just play in midfield. He's chosen to stock us with DMs in number 10s, and he has to figure out a way to make that shit balance. He has to figure out a way to make it work. I think there's an internal solution there, but will Arteta get to it? I'm not sure. It's up to the manager to figure that out. It really is. Lady says, on a lighter note, I'm currently in Sevilla for the game and I hope we win. I've been to 4 away European games and we've not won any. Should I go? Stay out, Lady. Don't go inside. You've been to 4 away European games and we've not won any? No. Stay outside. No, I'm just joking. Have a good time. It's not your fault we haven't won one. Hopefully today is the day. I hope you have a good time. Enjoy yourself in Sevilla and be careful, my friend. Yo-Yo says, these questions can only be answered by Arteta Edu. Why don't I blame any of these players harshly? No, I agree with you. I put out a clip earlier this morning and I, just saying once again that I feel like we don't ask the right questions sometimes as fans. Like, every game that turns around and like a player has a poor game and Arsenal fans are talking about some of those players like they're bums, like Zinchenko, like Jorginho, like Trossard, like Vieira. I'm like, did Arteta set them up for success or did he set them up to fail? Because if you know that certain players have limitations in their game and you know them better than anybody, because one, you bought them, and two, you see them on the training pitch, then why do I continuously see them in formations working within tactics that don't suit them? That's not, like, you know what I mean? It's not Trossard's fault that he's not a touchline winger. You bought him. You knew he wasn't. Not his fault. So ask him to play like Martinelli. It's not going to work. And it's up to the manager to play him in a more interior central role so that he can be in and around the box because that's where he does his best work. His best work is not on the touchline. His best work is in and around the box. Jorginho, playing him in a single pivot. Why? His best work has always been next to a really hardworking, athletic midfielder. Why are we playing him in a single pivot or a pivot of Zinchenko and Jorginho? Why are we doing that? That's not Jorginho's fault. We know Jorginho. Jorginho's 30 years old. We've seen him playing in the Premier League for like 5 years. So why are we surprised that when he plays in a single pivot, he doesn't look as good? Is that Jorginho's fault? No, it's not. So I'm unwilling to look at this group of players and say that I don't see quality in it. It's up to the manager to figure out how to get the most out of that quality. And right now, we're not getting the most juice out of our lemons right now. It's just we're kind of like undercooked, and I just want to see Arteta solve the situation. And I really want to see Thomas Partey in this lineup, in this group, Yeah. Um because tonight is such an important game. And I can't help but feel like, without our best midfield, we're going to get rocked tonight. Um, yeah. Here to there says Arteta has pure, unadulterated arrogance as if he's won, as if he's Klopp or Pep. Arteta needs to start explaining some of his galaxy brain stuff to the supporters. He's never going to do that. I mean, he's very defensive in the media, period. But like they asked him about Kai, very defensive. Asking about the goalkeeper situation, incredibly defensive. So he doesn't want to answer questions about the choices that he's made. So that's just him. So we're never going to get answers, but we need to start getting answers on the pitch. The answers I need to see is Arsenal looking like a team that's going to win trophies this season. And right now, I'm seeing a team that's kind of, you know, has a very good defensive structure. I'll give you that. Our defense is the only thing that's clicking right now, and it's a damn good defense. But everything else, especially when it comes to midfield, there's a lot of questions, and that's where we need to see the answers on the pitch. I don't necessarily need Arteta to get on a mic and tell me what he's doing, but I need to see the answers in wins, good performances, a balanced midfield, goals, chances created. I thought he really figured it out last season, where, the season prior, I think we had the same questions of what's going on with the midfield. Why aren't we creating enough chances? Why aren't we scoring enough goals? And we've kind of went backwards a little bit. And so he needs to figure out a way to get us going a little bit. We're not awful. Like, I'm not saying like, I still think we're one of the best teams in the league and we're performing at a good level, but this group I think can perform at a much higher level. And the performances that we've seen are kind of like, we don't know who we're going to get. We could get Arsenal against PSV or we can get Arsenal against Chelsea. Our performances are not as consistent from a midfield and attacking sense. Defensively, I think our performances have been quite, decent, consistent. So he needs to figure it out. Tawanda says Arteta will figure it. I hope so. It's so important. Mamang says Kai has to work. If not, it's on Arteta. He has to make it work. Personally, I don't think I can accept Kai becoming some sort of squad player that we just use here and there as a center forward. I feel like we've bought a player that Arteta has kind of went into the media and said is going to help us become a much better team, has really defended this signing. And you don't go out there and spend 65 million on a player and then them eventually become, we're not Manchester City. We can't buy 60 million pound squad players. Kai Havertz needs to be a big piece of the puzzle. And right now, him being kind of shuffled to the bench a little bit is giving me, it's a red flag. I need to see him in the lineup. I need to see him looking like a player that's being coached up. And he looks okay. Like, I'm not saying that he looks horrendous. I've been very consistent in saying that I don't think the guy's been terrible, but any idea that he's been outstanding or very good is a complete overreaction. He has been all right. And I need to start Arteta get like a lot more out of him. It's a good example that I'll use, and I used it the other day in a group chat. Nobody liked it, but I didn't care because I'm going to tell the truth when I feel like it's the truth. I like the job that Mauricio Pochettino has done with Conor Gallagher. I don't think Conor Gallagher is a world-class player, but I think the way that Pochettino is using him is getting the most out of his best attributes, So he's putting him in a system in a balanced midfield that allows him not necessarily to have to be like, eventually that'll become Nkunku. But in the meantime, all the things that he's being asked to do are the things that he does the best. And the things that he's not good at aren't on his shoulders. And so like I don't think he's the most like amazing player, but I think it's up to the manager to figure out ways to not expose their players, to put in players in places where their best attributes shine and their limitations are hidden. And I don't see enough of that with Mikel. I see too much of players being exposed and not enough of their best qualities being used. Like an example I would say of that is like Tierney. Tierney is a very good player that has some really good attributes going forward, overlapping crosses that were never utilized under Mikel Arteta, never utilized. But he was put in situations where his flaws and limitations were put on show to everybody. And so he looked a lot worse. We couldn't sell him. And now he's in Sociedad. Now, I'm not advocating for Tierney to be in the team because I think if you're going to play this way, you need to move him on, and also his injury record. But I just feel like this is a consistent pattern with Mikel Arteta is that players that have really good things that you can utilize, we don't ever use them, but we definitely highlight their flaws, and it's not a good thing. I want to see our players getting the most out of their best attributes. Like you want to get the best out of Vieira, you want to put him in situations where he's in between in the pockets, defending as little as possible, and pretty much have two guys winning the ball and punching it into him in between the lines in the pocket so he can create chances on the edge of the box. What Arteta chooses to do is put him in an 8 role on the left side and expect him to be able to play like Xhaka. It doesn't work like that. Boy says if Arteta wanted a new midfielder to do the same thing as Xhaka, then he would have offered Xhaka a new deal, double his money or something. Excuse me, while getting Rice. Sorry. Tawanda says, given the fact that we played 4 out of the top 6 teams in the first 9 games and we are unbeaten is incredible and elite. I think it's a good sign. But I don't want to turn a blind eye to things that need to still get fixed. There's still every chance in the world that those things will get fixed, but in the meantime, while they're not, the conversations will roar on. And I think, the idea that we should just be like, it's just going to get fixed and never speak about it, I feel like is a little bit like, especially when some of the things that we're seeing are things that we've seen over multiple seasons. So yeah, Arsenal is not in a terrible situation. I don't think, well, I'm not speaking about Arsenal in the context of like, we are going to fail massively this season, finish outside of the top 4, anything like that. What I am saying is that I don't think what we've done up until this period now is good enough to meet our main targets, which is winning trophies and, things like that. So, we still need to improve in certain circumstances, And so those conversations I get again, like the thing is if the conversations are being had, that means that people have questions. And I think sometimes people are like, because they're like, it'll just work itself out, it'll be fine, that they expect everybody else to have that same reaction. But we wouldn't be talking about these things if we didn't feel like, if I was talking about something that nobody felt like was a problem or something that needs to be addressed, there wouldn't be 300 people watching. People would have just said, you know what, you're just, talking about things that don't actually exist. We're fine, but these conversations are going to roar on because people know that we're not really at our top level yet. We don't even have a balanced midfield. That's all I'm saying is that you can't expect people not to speak about it. Which I feel like some people are like, they're like, well, it's going to be fine. So like we're unbeaten. So why are we talking about it? It's because like I feel like people have it in the back of their mind that these things will eventually be the reason why we don't meet our targets. That was a long way of saying people just are worried, and I can understand why they are. African Soldier says Mikel is a dictator. He wants players to play with shackles. If they don't, they get dropped. Anubis says Partey is fit. Arteta just prefers other players. Fair enough. Akau says Arteta Edu. Where is Edu in this? Since when did Edu become the manager? Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is at fault, like would be at fault for some of the things that we've seen so far this season. Not just Edu, not just Arteta, but it's a group effort to sign players and things like that. Kenny says we can be an ostrich. We can be an ostrich and pretend as if we can do it without Partey and the style of football. Boy says Nelson was given a new deal because it wasn't good accounting to save 20K a week in wages. There was nothing we could get with it. Amon says, I like how we have forgotten about Nelson. Why on earth will we give him a new contract if he's not going to use him? Questions to be answered. Questions to be answered. Chosen One says, Jess, Odie actually has around 104 GA for his career so far. Or are you talking just solely Arsenal stats in the Premier League? I felt like that was the only way to compare it in a way where it took into account that Madison hasn't always played in Europe. So that's why I just used the Premier League. So those stats that I gave you guys earlier between Madison, Bruno, and Martin Ødegaard, those were coming from just the Premier League in the time that they've been here. And then between Madison and Ødegaard in terms of the Big Six and their stats against the Big Six, those were just the Premier League as well, obviously, but also take into account that Madison had 10 more chances to do that, per seat. Do you you know what I mean? He wasn't a part of the Big Six. So also he's not only played more games because he wasn't in the Big Six against the Big Six, but he's also been here a lot longer. And really, Ødegaard has 9 goals and assists against the Big Six, and Madison has 22. That's not really that big of a discrepancy when you take into account the fact that Madison's been in the league for 2.5 more seasons. That's all I'm saying, just to put it into perspective. And Madison is an exceptional talent, but so is Martin Ødegaard. I don't really if you look at the numbers, you're looking at them, there's not really much between the two. It's just one is playing for Spurs right now and playing really well, and people wanted him. And so now instead of just saying Madison is really good, they have to make it a reflection on Martin Ødegaard, which I feel like is completely unfair. Amon says, damn, we don't have a good record against Spanish teams away from home. I'm not trying to hear it, y'all. I can't hear it right now. But yeah, we don't have a great record against Spanish teams away from home. In fact, our European record just in general is not very good. So tonight is a huge match where Arsenal really need to, perform. They really have to be up for it. I think in general, we have to be up for the fight. We have to be willing to give 100%. I think the level of performance and lack of energy that we saw against Lens will definitely see us getting slapped against Sevilla. So Arsenal definitely need to be up for it and earn the right to play. And I would just love to see Arsenal actually put in a really good away European performance under Mikel Arteta. I think in Europe in general, under Mikel Arteta, we've been very poor in terms of performance level. We may have gotten the results over the line, but I think about Olympiacos away, we won 1-0. It was a real struggle. Going to PSV away last season, it was awful. Even playing against Bodo Glimt and Zurich was really difficult. Now, mind you, we did have rotated lineups, but seeing how we played against Lens did not inspire a lot of confidence. And so Arsenal really need to put this whole lack of performance away from home in Europe to bed tonight. They need to just go out there, have a big performance, win the game, and put their foot and kind of stick one foot in the door in terms of getting out of this group, because you lose tonight, you're in a lot of trouble. Arsenal cannot lose this game. They have to win it. Losing to Lens really just threw everything into uncertainty. So they have to kind of stick one foot into the door and say, you know what, we're getting out of this group. Because it would be a catastrophe to not. And right now, it doesn't look like a certainty that we will. So it's really tough. It's really tough, but we need to kind of get over this. And I think a big part of that would be if Thomas Partey were able to play today, if, the rumors are not true. Again, if you guys are just joining, there are rumors circulating that Thomas Partey is not a part of the squad today. He's not going to play today. Jorginho also did the presser, which is a pretty decent indication of who's going to start. And if that is the case, there's big questions to be asked about whether or not we should move on from him. I actually don't think, I don't have much question. I think we do, but there it is. And, we're going to start pre-match vibes again. Like I told you guys, 7 p.m. UK time is when pre-match vibes is going to start, which is basically us reacting to the lineup before the watch along. So make sure you guys are there for that. Once I end this stream, this will direct you straight to that stream so that you guys can have it up on your browser or whatever. But also I have it pinned in the chat. Me and Pippa did a whole preview. So if you want to just check that out before the game, it's about 30 minutes. It's really quick. We do predictions, lineups, all that kind of stuff, what to expect from Sevilla. You guys can watch that. Pippa's amazing. And I'm so happy that she gave me an hour of her time to do that preview. So you guys can check this out. But you guys, I will see you guys for pre-match vibes in about an hour. And we'll go into the game once we see team news and really kind of that will set the temperature for how we feel moving forward with the game. So love you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys, in an hour or so. But make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. There's 300 of you guys in here, which is absolutely amazing. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in an hour. Bye, guys.